Welcome back to Stage C, everyone. Make sure that you have your headphones plugged in and you have the app open. This next panel is going to talk about cybersecurity, learnings from the past. I feel like personally, I'm not sure if you guys feel this way as well, I see this in the headlines all the time. I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, Cartier, North Face had a massive data breach, right? What can we learn from those mistakes? And so these experts coming on stage, we have Hildur Hauksson from Digital Learning Hub, Craig Dunn from Stoïk, Christophe Bianco from 33N Ventures, who's going to be moderating, and Jean-Marc Verdure from Creos. And so with that, let's welcome our cyber experts to the stage to talk about all the learnings from failures that we can experience. Let's give them a hand, everyone.
Oops. Hello, everybody. Are you hearing us? Yes? It's okay? That's quite strange for us to speak and not making sure that you are listening us. So thanks a lot for being to that session. So the title is a little bit provocative. Why, despite all the technology, despite all the regulation, we are still failing in cybersecurity? And so in order to answer to that question, we set up a panel that will give you an overview of perhaps a little bit thinking about what is the current situation and how to adopt an organization to the new challenges. So in order to discuss about the topic, first I would like to introduce Jean-Marc. So Jean-Marc, can you briefly introduce you?
Yes, Jean-Marc Verdure. I'm still a CIO of Creos Luxembourg, which is the grid operator in Luxembourg. But that's also, I'm transitioning to retirement now, and we experienced a cyber attack in 2022, and that's the reason of my presence today.
So perhaps we will jump immediately on the topics. And Jean-Marc, we can say that you are a veteran in the IT sector, in big corporation. You used to be a key player in different organizations. As you mentioned, you have been exposed to a cyber incident 2 years ago now, if I'm not wrong. Why, or perhaps which lessons that you can share with the audience on what you learned on that, despite all the competencies, technology, and processes that you had in place?
Yeah, the first one is quite obvious. It's, of course, the lack of preparation of our companies. Of course, we are all making simulations, but these simulations are quite far from the real world. And simulation, for instance, cannot just help you to manage the stress, to manage the duration, for instance, and cannot also simulate extreme situations. Talking about the stress, for instance, I remember quite well when I signed my cyber insurance contract, the same day I enter into my iPhone, the calling number and all the practical information. But when I was called to say, okay, you are under attack, my first reflex was to open my laptop and start digging into my files, folders, and emails, completely forgotten that I had everything I need on my smartphone. Just a very little example. That's not something that you can simulate easily. A second one is certainly this extreme situation or cyber attack happens in the summer, the second quarter of July. That's the worst period for you. Most of your people are on holiday, and it's extremely difficult to simulate this kind of situation. When you make a simulation, you expect that everyone will be available to fix the issue. But that's not always the case. And we had some shortage of staff, not only on the IT side, but also on the business side. No real legal support, no real HR support at that time. And one more thing is that in most IT department, you have internal, but also external for the day-to-day. And so you have nothing from a contractual perspective to ask them to work 14 hours a day and 7 days a week, for instance. Yeah, duration as well. If I look at my example, it took us something like 12 days, 12 very long days, by the way, to fix and to recover most of the critical business processes, up to 24 days to fix the rest and also implement the first remediations, but also up to 3 months to manage the data leakage, for instance. And when you ask people to work for such a long period of time, there are some practical consequences that you cannot easily anticipate. First, you have to change your leadership style. You cannot be a CIO just delegating tasks to your team. You need really to be very, very close to your people because you have to know and understand very little detail that are very important. Like, for instance, being sure that you can advise your board to say, no, the cyber attack is finished, we can start the recovery. If we are not completely convinced by that, you cannot do your job. That's just one example of that. But by being so close to your people, you are also putting some pressure on them. So from time to time, you have also to step back and let them work autonomously without being too close to them. You have also to really care about people. Many people came back from holiday, others didn't leave to go on holiday, for instance. Most of my team also sacrifice weekends, which huge impacts on themselves, but also on the family. So you have to be very caring. And thinking backward about that, I think that we missed something. We should have implemented a kind of psychological support or something from the HR department to really talk to people and be sure that they are okay. And finally, also, in such situation, you know that the IT guys are very often self-critical. That means that you have to avoid reduction of the self-esteem. And so I communicated very, very fast, very quickly in the beginning of the attack to say, we are not working so hard to clean our mess. We are working so hard to save the company, to save the group, to continue serving our clients effectively. That's very important. You are not guilty, you are heroes. And that's something which was extremely important for the people to keep them committed for so long. And that was a message that was also given by the top management of the group, which helped quite a lot. Yeah.
And perhaps, Jean-Marc, before you move on that, say, people are thinking, when they are not in that world, that with all the maturity, expertise, technology, the fact that you are regulated and these kind of things, that this kind of situation can happen perhaps just because you missed something or you failed in something. What is now with the time that passed and the level of preparation you had and what you are seeing? What is perhaps the key learning you can share with the audience on what did you learn from that, on top of, because so far you didn't mention anything that is related to the technology, just it's a people issue to manage this kind of situation.
But I think managing stress is a very important topic. It was quite difficult at the very beginning because I had a chance to have a very committed people. But anyway, the stress is very, very huge. I mentioned that they should feel like heroes, but they are not superheroes. And several people in my team suffered from that situation. To be very myself, I remember that when I finalized my report to the local authorities about the data leakage, for instance, 2 days after, I collapsed. I completely broke down without understanding what was happening to me. And we have a couple of people having exactly the same issue. So I think we should be very, very close to the people and to keep them motivated and committed for such a long period of time. Certainly that, yeah. And accept also the mistakes. We made some mistakes that didn't allow us, for instance, to have a complete view of what happened with the hacker and how he gained some privileges because we deleted things that shouldn't have been deleted. But that's something that happened. So no blaming, of course, when such things happen.
Okay. Thank you. Perhaps we can switch to Craig. Craig, can you introduce you rapidly to the audience?
So Craig Dunn, I'm responsible for underwriting at Stoïk, which is a French managing general agent or an insurance company that provides cyber insurance predominantly to companies up to 1 billion of revenue.
So, as a cybersecurity professional, talking to someone that insure a company against data breach or this kind of situation, I used to think that you're a masochist. So can you explain a little bit what is a cyber insurance and why do you think that there's a market for that today?
Yeah, so cyber insurance is an insurance policy that covers anything that impacts the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of systems or data. And that is quite broad. So for example, if there's a ransomware attack, it can cover things like the rebuild costs of restoring systems after a ransomware attack, as well as the business interruption costs of lost revenue and lost gross profit. If there's a data breach, it can cover the notification costs, it can cover credit monitoring costs, it can also cover other things like talking to the regulators or any third-party liabilities that arise from lawsuits resulting from that data breach. So it's quite broad in terms of cover. Now, cyber insurance is a really good solution, I think, for SMEs because it doesn't just cover those things. It provides a service as well. So one, for example, Stoïk, we have preventative solutions that come alongside of our policies. So we offer free scans, external scans. We also do free phishing training for their employees. They can use our platform to set up phishing trainings. Then we also have other solutions that allow them to look at their Active Directory setup, etc., to help make sure that they're secure. And then the most important thing, though, for SMEs is they get a hotline that they can call. Because not all organizations have a Jean-Marc they can call upon in the event of an incident. If you're a small organization, you probably have never gone through a cyber incident. So being able to call up an expert to walk you through that is potentially the most important thing that you can have. And that sort of service that you get alongside of a policy is the most key element that you get with that. The other things, the reasons why I believe that cyber insurance is the right solution for SME clients is because the level of security you actually need to have in order to get the insurance policy is commensurate to the level of risk. So yes, SME clients, they are still a target. A lot of them work with bigger clients globally or global organizations, and they are that supply chain risk that we often talk about in cybersecurity. They are the back door into a large organization because they do have a lower level of security. If you're a small company, you don't have the big IT budget or IT security budget that a large corporate does. So you cannot have an internal security operations center to look after all these events. So instead, what we ask of clients, if you have a 10 million, let's say 10 million in revenue, is we'll ask you to have good backups, robust backups, so that if a ransomware event does occur, you can actually recover your systems from those backups. And then we'll ask for things like multi-factor authentication to help ensure that your remote access is actually properly secured. And that's about it. It's going to be very in line with what your risk is. Obviously, if you're a grid operator and you're operating a bunch of operational technologies, then yes, we're going to ask you, how do you secure those operational technologies? We're not going to just go on and look past that without doing some underwriting on that risk. So I think that the price as well is commensurate with that risk. This isn't a really expensive product, and it's often in line with what a security company would charge them for just an IR retainer in comparison.
Just perhaps on that, because for people to understand, you are a commercial company, so you have to make me money. And so how do you evaluate the risk when you sign an insurance with a company? What are the key criteria that you are considering in order to evaluate the exposure you will get with that company?
Yeah. So I think the main ones are, well, one, what is their level of security? Obviously, if they do have a level of security that's higher, then we can provide them with potentially a better price because the frequency of events will be lower, potentially the severity. But just depending on what the company does, that's also going to have a big impact on how much the payout's going to be at the end of the day, what the severity of the incident is going to be. So for example, if you are doing, let's say, natural gas distribution, your revenue might seemingly be really, really high, but actually your gross profit, how much you actually lose from business interruption is going to be very, very low. So we will adapt our price accordingly to that risk based on how much we're going to pay out on business interruption, and then also how many employees you have, how many systems you have, how much personal data you have, because all those things really define what the risk is and how big that risk is for an organization.
Perhaps before coming back to the regulation and level of security, perhaps Jean-Marc, you have been exposed to the regulator because you are a regulated player. So let's be a little bit sarcastic of the expectation you had toward that entity that imposed your rules and the support you received during your incident. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, I mentioned that our companies are not very well prepared, but I can say the same for the public authorities as well. And indeed, as you're a grid operator, very soon after the attack, you are under close scrutiny by all these actors, asking for a lot of reports. And we had in front of us the regulator, ILR, the High Commissioner to the National Protection, the CNPD, the police, of course, even the secret services at some point in time. So that's really a lot, and it's not at all coordinated. So all the questions are legitimate, of course, that's not the point, but it's very, very hard to follow all that. So an advice from my side would be to have someone taking care of this communication, not only the CIO, because that's very demanding during this attack. So not very well prepared, not very well coordinated, and we didn't receive really help. I think we received a lot of questions and work, but not a real help from the authorities. And just another example, which might seem funny, but it's not really funny. It's about my declaration, filing a complaint by the police during the summer holiday on a Sunday afternoon. And I can tell you that's really an obstacle trip to get there. So I remember I went to the first police station. So I told my story. They asked questions, say, no, we cannot do something for you. Let's go for the second police station. I told again my story, received some questions. No, we cannot do. Go to the central police station, near the station, indeed. And they might help you. Again, and it took up to that time something like 2 to 3 hours. And I said, Mr. Verdure, that's really very, very complicated. Please come back on Monday. So no, I cannot come back on Monday. Potentially, I have the data of 300,000 customers that have leaked. So you need to receive my complaint. So finally, they called someone who was in a barbecue. It was an holiday. One of the two people, and he came back home to find the keys, then opened the building, stopped the alarm, and then we were able to file a complaint. But not a formal complaint. It was a complaint, but with some missing administrative stuff. And why was that important for us? During the attack, we identified the IP address used for the exfiltration of data. So we knew that our data set was on a Dutch server, and we wanted to order the Dutch authorities to order a takedown of the server. But for that, we needed to have a formal police declaration. And so 2 days after, it was too late, and we might have avoided this data leakage.
So, Craig, when we listen to that, I suspect that in a regulated market, you feel more confident to provide insurance to players because they are supposed to have a level of maturity and these kind of things. As security professional, we can see that regulation, compliance / cyber is not always the same. What is your view on that? Or do you consider that?
I strongly believe insurers make better regulators than the regulators do. The reason for that is, and I'm not a libertarian, by the way, but the reason for that is we adapt what we require from our insureds way, way quicker than any regulator can. We adapt to that risk very, very quickly. So just to give you an example, the regulator in the UK, they have Cyber Essentials, which is their kind of framework of what all SMEs should hit in order to be secure from a cyber standpoint. That still does not mandate good backups as one of the policies and procedures that people need to follow, which is, I don't understand. Whereas us, the minute a risk changes, then we have a financial incentive because we're getting paid based on our success of keeping companies secure and helping them get back up and running. We can adapt our question set. We can adapt what we ask of clients. And as a result, actually, you have a lot of private equity firms that mandate all of their portfolio companies to have insurance because then it gives them a bit of hope, at least, that yes, our investments are well secured or have the right level of security in place because an insurer has looked at it. And secondly, if something does go wrong, then we can get some money back from that incident as well. And same thing with large corporates that work with small SME clients for, let's say, marketing or for some tech development. Again, they can recoup some of their losses if a hacker gets into their systems from one of those SMEs that they're working with. Or alternatively, they can also have some idea around the level of security that's in place at those SMEs that they are working with. So I think that there is a lot to be said about what regulators could, in theory, do. But again, I think insurers are far more reactive because we see the claims. We deal with these incidents. Stoïk, for example, we have an in-house incident response team that operates 24/7, round the clock, and we deal with all these incidents all the time. So we can have that feedback loop between what's happening on the incident side and what we should be charging and what we should be asking people as well. So we're able to kind of have that full feedback loop, which the regulators, for whatever reason, aren't able to do.
So perhaps the last question for you, Greg, a little bit provocative again to you. You know, when you subscribe insurance, there was always small lines, you know, and in cyber, if I remember the WannaCry and all that story, you know, there are a lot of discussion about, say, state-sponsored activity. So the fact that the hacker are linked to a country where the activity could be considered as a war action, which is normally excluded from the insurance. What is the current posture? Because it's quite difficult, at least at the beginning, to attribute the attacks to someone formally, or what is the motivation behind that? So how do you manage that?
Yeah, so there has been some changes in the last few years around what war exclusions look like on cyber insurance policies. And today, the aim of the policy is to exclude acts from a kinetic war, but then also cyber operations from a state. And let me explain what that means. Basically means that if somebody like a NATO country comes out and says, yes, this attack was attributed to X state, then it could be potentially excluded, but only where that attack has a major impact on the critical national services of the country in which you are operating. So we're trying to come up with equivalent of the impact of a kinetic war on a country, but just from the cyber realm. So by saying, yes, it needs to take down the electrical grid or the healthcare system or something like that, and so thus the state isn't operating as it should, that's akin to a war. And so if that has happened, if let's say the grid operator gets taken down by a cyber attack, and you're also impacted by that same cyber attack, and then you have the government coming out and saying, yes, that was Iran or that was North Korea, then potentially it could be excluded. However, if you look back and when Sony got hacked by North Korea, something like that wouldn't be excluded because it was just North Korea getting hacked purely by, or North Korea hacking Sony, sorry, and no other companies or organizations were impacted by that event, and thus the impact overall was limited, and you didn't have that larger state of war going on that we're kind of looking for that exclusion to be triggered.
Thank you. So perhaps to finish with, so it's not Surge for the one that didn't recognize Hildur. So Hildur is from the Digital Learning Hub. So we invited her on stage because if you discuss after the session with Jean-Marc or even with Greg, you will see that cybersecurity is quite dependent on people. And when I mean people, I mean competencies. And with the current pressure organizations have around adopting AI, adopting all this kind of technology, for sure the human remain a key element. So perhaps Hildur, that thanks for replacing Surge at the last minute, it's disaster recovery operation. Can you perhaps present to the audience? I saw that there's a lot of École 42 students, so they know the school, but what is the DLH?
Yes, so the Digital Learning Hub is a department within the Ministry of Education here in Luxembourg. We're under the Service for Adult Education, and our mission is to reduce the digital skills gap here in Luxembourg. And we do that by providing short courses, which can be done on-site at Esch-Belval, and we also provide the 42 Luxembourg coding school.
So just because people sometimes don't know you, at least the professional that use more specialized education firm, how many training do you have currently, and what is the range of subject that you are covering?
Yes, so we are organizing 500 courses this year. That's in all kind of branches of IT, whether that's coding, blockchain, AI, cybersecurity, and we... yes. What was the question?
Design thinking and this kind of things also. Yeah. Can you just give to the guys, because I know the answer, but what is the price of a course at DLH?
Yes, so our courses are heavily subsidized by the Ministry of Education. So our courses are €4 per hour. A course that's three hours long is then €12. All of our courses are published on our website, open for the public, so anyone can register, whether you're an employee or a private person, a student, or a job seeker. So anyone can take our courses, and our courses are usually quite short. So it can be a one-day awareness course, like for the NIS 2 directive, but it can also be like a whole learning track of cybersecurity essentials for a whole month, which can be very good for people who are already professionals and want to get into cybersecurity. So we have different kinds of courses, awareness courses, but also more in-depth courses for professionals, but also for beginners. We, as mentioned, have courses on the NIS 2 directive for cybersecurity, but we also have courses in generative AI and its security implementations. and different cybersecurity courses in general.
Just perhaps to react on that, I was yesterday in Switzerland with a payment provider who said that every time there's a new version of ChatGPT, they are seeing a new wave of frauds. And so it seems that the attacker is quite agile, are taking advantage of the new technology. So the Prime Minister announced last week that in the discours to la nation that you will be in charge of setting the IA Academy.
Yes, so we will...
can you elaborate a little bit for us?
Yes, definitely. So we are very excited to set up an AI Academy as well as a Cybersecurity Academy, where these programs are going to be more in-depth and hands-on for professionals to get a good glimpse of AI and cybersecurity, and to upskill and reskill our nation, kind of, or our the people in the professional sector. And so we are very excited to have these academies next year in our program as well, which will be a little bit different than our usual courses, with more hybrid options as well. So we're very excited for that, to reduce the digital skills gap in cybersecurity, AI, which is always accelerating.
Thanks a lot. So perhaps as a closing word, Jean-Marc, if I'm not wrong, you will be soon retired. So long journey in the IT. If I remember well, when you were dealing with that incident, you told me that it was the worst experience that you had in your long career, with a lot of big projects with big impact. So if you have to share one word, or do you think that the future will be easier for IT manager with all that new technology and all the challenges of maintaining the skill inside your team? What is your view on that?
I'm not sure that it will be easier. I think we have been, everything is increasing. So the threats have been increasing at a pace which is simply incredible today. I think that, of course, following this attack, a lot of things happen within the company that help us, and that help me notably, increase very, very the level of security, which is, so to a certain extent it was good for us, because now we are far above the level of security that we used to have in the past. So I think, of course, it's better not to have to pass through that very poor experience, which was, even if it was the worst one, it was also an incredible human experience, because you are so close to the people that it's also something very interesting from a human perspective. No, I think now that, of course, we are better and better organized internally. I think also that the governance which is in place might make things more complex tomorrow than it was during my attack. During the attack, I worked very closely with the CISO. We're exactly on the same page all the time. Now the roles have been defined very precisely, very differently. There are many things to follow that might make our collaboration more difficult in this kind of situation.
Okay. Craig, as we heard from Jean-Marc, you need to have one incident in order to be better prepared for the next one, which is not a good business model for you. So the next roundtable will be done by policymakers, thinking about how we can better support the digital ecosystem. What could be the ask that you have to all the regulator, all the people that are trying to make the ecosystem more resilient? Because Jean-Marc was more in the position of a big corporate. Now we have, for each big corporate, a lot of people in the supply chain, which have sometimes a very limited capability. So what is your expect on that?
I don't think we actually really need the regulators to do much more. I think this too is obviously going to help increase the governance around, well, what do people need to be doing? It will increase the need for directors to say, hey, do we have cyber insurance in place, which is a good thing. I think GDPR made us really progress on the data privacy side. But I think even just with NIS2 coming down, what that's going to do is it's going to make those directors of big organizations look at that supply chain risk and say, hey, how are we governing that? And then that in turn will then make sure that the large corporates are saying to their SMEs that they work with, do you have cyber insurance? Do you have the right protections in place? And it will filter down automatically. So I think even just the regulations that are already going in place should help protect the larger ecosystem overall. just with the way that we're going currently.
Thank you, Greg. Perhaps, Hildur, it's not a question, but it's more a call for the audience. My last discussion with Serge last week, we did a big event in cyber, and the DLH want to democratize the filling the gap of education. But for that, they need to have instructor. So in your area, guys, if you have some expertise in some technical domains, Hildur will be on the booth. They're not paying €4 an hour, so it's more interesting than buying the course. But they look for expertise in order to train the students and the people that are attending the formation.
So we work with external experts in their field. So we work with university professors or experts in cybersecurity, where we have experience with you as well. So we try to have trainers who are really experts in the material and in the subjects to do these trainings, so that we really that the participants really get a hands-on experience for doing the training. Yeah.
Thank you. So we will close the session, and perhaps just to use the last minute I have, just to summarize the key points. Technology will not be the issue to solve the cybersecurity problems. Second one, for sure, cyber insurance remain a capability that you need to have, because something will happen sooner or later. So I encourage you to talk a little bit to Craig in advance, not just when you need them. And perhaps the last point that makes me a little bit stressed as a teacher, because I'm teaching at Telecom Nancy also, I'm seeing all my students using ChatGPT and very few of them explaining to me how it's working. And so using a technology that you don't master and you don't understand, for sure will create a lot of opportunity for the bad guys and the know who understand how to use the technology. So education and continuous education is something key, I think, for organization, and not just for the technical expert, but also for the management, in order to appreciate the risk that we are taking when we are entering that new technology into an organization. Thank you a lot, guys, and Hildur for having replaced Serge last minute. And I hope you will enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you.